Hello, Swifto here. I just wanted to make a little video today to pay my respects to the father of the Elder Scrolls, Julian LeFey, who after a long battle with cancer passed away at the time of recording this just last week. I want to express my sympathies to his friends and family at this difficult time. Someone close to me has had to fight their own battle with cancer a couple of years ago, and fortunately in their case they managed to pull through back to their normal, healthy, annoying selves. But I know, as I'm sure a lot of you out there will know, how scary it can be when you find out that someone close to you has a potentially life-threatening illness. But at the very least, it seems from reading the updates from Once Lost Games that Julian LeFey had time to say his goodbyes to his loved ones and was with them when he passed away. I must say, obviously, I don't really know much about him really, but from the videos that I've seen, such as the podcast from Once Lost Games that they've posted on their YouTube channel, it seems like he was a very nice and intelligent person. I'm a massive fan of the Elder Scrolls series, and I've done several, not very good I must say, videos on my YouTube channel talking about these games over the years. He was considered the father of the Elder Scrolls and is integral to the series' development, working on the first one, Arena, then Daggerfall, Battlespire, and I think he did some work on Morrowind too. I came a little late to the party and started with Skyrim in 2011, but then I worked my way backwards in the series and really enjoyed discovering these games, which then soon became a bit of an obsession for me at that time, and I came to really appreciate all the lore and history and delving into this world, which really felt deeper than any other game series that I'd played up to that point. I know other games have done it too, but The Elder Scrolls was the first game series that I was aware of having books within the game to enhance the story and the world, filled with all kinds of interesting little stories and bits of information about the world, which really made it feel more alive. A lot of people criticise Arena. It is very clunky and quite simple and primitive in a way, but I can appreciate it for what it is and what they were trying to do at the time. I personally don't think it's that bad, honestly, and it definitely has a certain charm to it all of its own. Though admittedly Daggerfall did take it to a whole new level, and it's really where the Elder Scrolls started to find its feet. As someone who started at the end of the series and went back in time, it's quite surprising to see just how much of the Elder Scrolls lore and world was already there from the very early days of its chronology. I do have to say I was a little critical of Daggerfall when I first played it, for being a huge world with not a lot in it, and feeling a little bit too big and ambitious in my opinion, whilst also being frustratingly difficult. But I always respected the game developers' ambition and appreciated what they were trying to do with it. Also, the story is more complex and interesting than later Elder Scrolls games in my opinion. A few years ago, with the release of Daggerfall Unity, I've been able to give Daggerfall a second chance, and with the additional bonus of being able to add mods to the game, my appreciation for Daggerfall has increased quite a lot, and I do really love roaming around the lands and exploring this huge open world. You do have to use your imagination a little bit, but that's not necessarily a bad thing with an open world RPG. They were truly pioneers of game development back in the early 90s, and I think the Elder Scrolls really paved the way for other 3D open world RPGs. I know it wasn't like the first one, but in my opinion I think it really set the bar quite high in some respects, especially with Daggerfall, maybe not so much with Arena, admittedly, but none so far I've ever been able to capture my attention as fully as the Elder Scrolls series has. Of course, video games have often been ridiculed and dismissed by snobby people who just don't understand them. But games are so much more than what they once were. The early arcade games are still fun at times too, don't get me wrong, but once games started to have more in-depth stories, and then when they transitioned to larger worlds with interesting characters and things to do, they really became something more than just a game. I love large open world games where you can just have fun exploring, not just following a path through a linear story, but actually exploring and having experiences rather than predetermined story segments, if you will. Of course, even large open world games where you get to create your own character have to have some kind of plot to them. But that doesn't stop those who have a bit of imagination from getting invested in role-playing a kind of character if they desire to do so. That's why I love the Elder Scrolls. Yes, obviously they do have like a plot, and they will push you into playing the role of a hero, especially the later ones. But you don't necessarily need to do that. You don't need to play it that way. You do have the freedom to choose your own path, and which can make them infinitely more engaging than just a movie, which could last for like an hour or two. Even other video games, for me at least, they provide a much needed break from the stresses of real life, but only for a short time. It's only the larger, more open games like Elder Scrolls that really allow me a kind of escapism that goes beyond what a movie or a Mario game might provide. And I love games where you can be someone else for a while. I don't exactly have the most difficult life, but like so many others out there, it's not exactly ideal, and I do suffer a bit from depression and anxiety, I will admit to you. Being a slightly socially awkward reject who isn't very tough or smart or brave or skilled in any way whatsoever, but in a vast open world game where you can choose how to play, you have the chance to be a better version of yourself, a version of me that was just a little bit braver, perhaps, or had magic powers. But then you can go beyond even that. If you've had a bad day in the real world, you can safely vent out your frustrations in a game like that and become a villain for an hour or two, which is always kind of fun, for a little while at least. One day you could be a heroic swordsman, the next you could be a stealthy assassin, or a sorcerer of some kind. So I have a great deal of respect for those early pioneers of immersive role-playing games that have given me the chance to play out these little fantasies in the comfort of my own bedroom without having to have all the fears and stresses that come with real-world issues. And being such a big fan of the Elder Scrolls, I'm naturally subscribed to several Elder Scrolls-related YouTube channels, and it was from an interview that Camel did with Ted Peterson that I first learned of the Wayward Realms. If you don't know what the Wayward Realms is, it's basically the combined dream project of Julian LeFey and Ted Peterson, and is a game in development at the time of recording, which is going to be a kind of spiritual successor to Daggerfall. It's not an Elder Scrolls game. It's going to be its own thing, but will be heavily inspired by the likes of Daggerfall, and the people working on it at Once Lost Games hope that it will be something that will bring new life to the gaming industry and open world RPGs in general. I was so impressed with their vision that I did something that I've never done before. I've given money to charity a couple of times in the past, but I've never done anything like this before. I actually went and backed their project during their Kickstarter campaign, which, like I say, is something I've never done before, and I'm excited to see how the project will develop over time. I don't have an awful lot of money, but I wanted to show my support because I really feel like the Wayward Realms has the potential to be something quite special. I think I had to go like a week or two of just eating pasta, but I don't mind. I like pasta, and if the game ever gets released, then it'll be well worth the sacrifice. I'm sure everyone at Once Lost Games will be affected profoundly by the loss of Julian LeFey, as the project simply wouldn't exist without him, and he was heavily involved with its development. But I'm sure they'll be more determined than ever now to get the project developed further to honour his vision and hopefully get it released in the next few years. In a recent update from Once Lost Games, there was a message from his daughter who thanked everyone for their support. She also said that those who wish to show respect for him could simply continue to support the Wayward Realms team, or to make a donation to any charity that supports the Ukraine war effort, as it's something he cared deeply about. So please do, if you so feel inclined to do so. Otherwise, you could show your appreciation for his work in the Elder Scrolls and the Wayward Realms in a comment on this video, or one of the videos that Once Lost Games has released on their YouTube channel, which I shall leave a link to in the video's description. Thank you, Julian LeFey, and everyone else who worked on those early Elder Scrolls games for giving us such amazing adventures and memories, and to those who are currently working on the Wayward Realms. I hope his vision becomes a reality one day, and we can get to play in this new realm of adventure and fun. Thank you very much for listening, and adios for now.